At the Boris Paghadze Dinamo Arena in Tbilisi, Georgia were playing Greece in a final winner-takes-all 2024 European Championship qualifier. With so much at stake and with both sides terrified of making a mistake, the teams ground out a dire, tense 0-0 draw over 120 minutes. It came to penalties, with Nika Kvekveskiri scoring the decisive kick and propelling Georgia to the finals. And the players didn't know then, but by the time they reached Germany, they would stand for something far beyond the sport. The celebrations exploded on the pitch, in the stands and across this tiny country nestled in the Caucasus between Russia, Azerbaijan, Armenia and Turkey. It was, after all, an historic event and a unifying one too. Euro 2024 would be Georgia's first ever major tournament, since they won independence from the Soviet Union in 1991, and it would also be a chance for Georgia's greatest player, Napoli's Kvicha Kvaratskhelia, to grace the international stage that his talents deserve. But that's not to say, of course, that Georgia doesn't have a proud history. The Kingdom of Georgia is regarded as one of the world's oldest states, lasting for almost a millennia. And on the pitch, Georgians were always well represented in the Soviet Union national team. Dinamo Tbilisi was one of the strongest teams in the Soviet top league, winning it twice. In the late 1970s and 1980s, they emerged from behind the Iron Curtain to become one of world football's most exciting teams. They were drawn against the world-conquering Liverpool in the 1979-80 European Cup, and they beat them 2-1 at Anfield, playing a brand of swashbuckling football. In the return leg in Tbilisi, Dinamo won 3-0. Older West Ham United fans still talk with awe at witnessing Dinamo dismantle their team at Upton Park, 4-0 in the quarter-final of the 1980-81 Cup Winners' Cup. Dinamo went on to win it. But as the Soviet Union declined, so did Dinamo Tbilisi. Independence saw the founding of its own league and national team for the first time, but Georgia, a nation of under 4 million people, has bumped along the bottom of FIFA's rankings for most of its post-independence existence. In 2015, they were ranked 154th in the world by FIFA. A major tournament was a pipe dream. Enter UEFA's Nations League. The new tournament was introduced in 2018 as a way of cutting down on meaningless friendlies. But UEFA also brought in a playoff route to the European Championship finals for smaller teams, or bigger teams who were having a bad run of games. In the 2020 edition, it was North Macedonia that qualified for the first time, beating Georgia in the final. And this time, it was Georgia's turn. But as the tournament has approached, the outpouring of unity that followed the victory against Greece has dissipated. Georgia's national team has been drawn into a political scandal. Millions of Georgians have taken to the street in protest at the government's attempts to reintroduce what's been called a foreign agents law. The law, introduced by the populist Georgian Dream government, is an attempt to crack down on what they say are the opaque sources of funding from outside the country for non-government organisations and independent media outlets. Opposition politicians and protesters who want the country to move closer to the European Union have called it the Russian law, and believe that it was designed to silence critical media and eviscerate civil society opposition, just as a similar law did when it was introduced in Russia in 2012. The protests have heralded comparisons with the 2014 Maidan protests in Ukraine, with a pro-Russian government battling protesters who wanted closer alignment with the West. And Georgia's relationship with Russia has been a difficult one. Two regions of Georgia, Abkhazia and South Ossetia, have been the cause of civil war since independence, and later a full invasion by Russia in 2008. Russia has for years supported and helped maintain separatist movements there and continues to have an influence in the country. And in 2012, the Georgian Dream Party came to power, often leaning on the power of football for electoral gain. Former AC Milan midfielder Kacha Kaladze was elected with Georgian Dream in 2012 and has been the mayor of Tbilisi since 2017. Former national team player Levan Kobiashvili was elected to parliament on a Georgian Dream ticket in 2016 and is now the head of the Georgian Football Federation. And although some in the party have claimed the country is moving towards Europe and was awarded EU candidate status last year, the opposition point to the foreign agents law to describe their true intentions. As the legislation has snaked through parliament, protesters have been met with increasing police violence, prompting Georgia's top footballers to speak out in support, linking Georgia's European Championship qualification with the protesters' demands to move closer to Europe. On May the 2nd, as reported by Radio Free Europe, Watford midfielder Georgi Chekvetadze posted his support on Instagram. It's difficult for me to see how they're confronting my compatriots, especially women and children. Nothing is worth more than our people. No law is more important than them. Rescind this law, and we will live together like we did on March the 26th. No to Russia and full speed ahead to Europe. Captain Jabakankalva posted a picture of 2 protesters confronting the police with the caption, "Fuck Russia." Gwicha Kvaratskhelia, Georgi Mamadashvili, Georgi Kocharashvili, and Buruziv Zivadze also posted in support of the protesters. Whilst the protesters were jubilant at their support, this did not go down well with the government. One pro-government politician essentially accused Kvaratskhelia of helping to foment a new civil war. Levan Kobiashvili, meanwhile, accused the opposition of using the players for nefarious ends. An incredible scale of pressure, attacks and insults is being carried out on our boys. The people who, in just a few weeks, will carry the flag of Georgia to the middle of Europe, in Germany, and represent our country for the first time in history. Even today, in various social networks and media, we see unheard of attacks and insults carried out by specific mean opposition leaders towards the Georgian football team and players. Kacha Kaladze, who won 2 Champions League winners' medals and is now the General Secretary of Georgian Dream, claimed that the opposition were fascists, who have incited violence and have bullied the national team players into supporting the protesters. In the end, the bill was passed by Georgia's parliament. Although it was later vetoed by the president, it returned just in time for Georgia's opening Group F game against Turkey. Coach Willy Sagnol has picked the same squad that took his team to the finals, but the protests will continue. And whilst the government has called for that same spirit of unity that exploded after qualification, many in Georgia will expect its national team players to do more than just compete, but also to use their platform to change the direction of the country. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. With the latest transfer news and insight on every Premier League football story that matters, theathletic.com puts you inside football. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.